with all these interviews and my Wi-Fi at home, which I've always thought was fine. I've noticed that when it's trying to do these Zoom calls, like it actually drops like every 20 minutes or so.
Oh no.
So I had to find a new space, but it's been working well this season. So hopefully we'll have no issues. How are you?
Good. I'm good. I have to teach in a little bit, but it's been good. It's a slower Friday morning as well. No kids for me, but just two dogs, but it's
How
just calmer morning.
how are you? Do you teach like at the actual studio? Everything's out of the actual live studio now?
For the most part, but today I'll be teaching in our virtual studio, so it's fun. You can kind of teach anywhere, any place, which is nice. I get to kind of work from home on certain days when I'm teaching on our virtual studio, so it's a nice little hybrid
Yeah.
approach.
What are you? Do you live close to where the actual studio is?
Yeah, in about 15 minutes, give or take, without traffic, in California. Everything's kind of like a low key 30 minutes with traffic, but
Yes.
it's not too bad. Yeah, a couple miles away, which is nice.
I
So
haven't actually managed to join any of the your live classes. I've done everything from the library.
I love you'll
But
have to come say hello. What part of LA or where
well,
are you?
I'm in New York
New
now.
York. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah. So I live in Dumbo in Brooklyn.
Hmm.
Did you live here at some point? I feel like I
I
read that
did.
somewhere.
I went to college at Marymount Manhattan College and from New Jersey, so East Coaster at heart. And I've been in
Okay.
LA, I want to say for like nine years about now.
Okay. So we've switched places because I'm from California. But I've now been here for like going on 8 years, which I actually never thought I'd be an East Coast person.
Yeah.
Because I was very much like California, West Coast is the best coast, but um I don't know. I love it here and it's been really good. And there's a studio near me in Soho, right? I
In
think.
Soho, yes, it's not
Yeah.
too far. So you should
Yeah.
definitely check it out
I will. Do you ever come over here to teach?
all the time. So next time I'll
Okay.
have to hit you up, Leah. But in
Yes.
and out of the city, like, we film sometimes are in New York as well. So for our on-demand library. So I'll be doing that. Or just my family is still East Coast. They're actually in Maryland now. So I don't really have too many ties to Jersey, New York anymore outside of like college friends and whatnot. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I would love to just hear about, I do want to hear about how you were growing up on the East Coast. So, and I want to ask like about your background. I knew just from looking at you. And well, let me just say, let me get my like fan moment out of the way. I had my youngest is about 2.5 years old, and she was born during the pandemic. And although I'm a yoga teacher by trade, which I mentioned to you,
Yes.
I had already like taken a break from teaching prior to her becoming pregnant with her. And then I was so worried about COVID and the baby, keeping her safe. Like I stopped going to classes and like I found it really hard to get back into things after this pregnancy. And just like I felt really stuck in my body. And I have to say, like with all the things that I've tried, it's the workouts, it's the P-ball workouts with you that has like instigated change in my body. And I only got the equipment bundle maybe like 6 weeks ago. Like it hasn't been that
Mm.
long. And even like I typically do the shorter workouts, like the 28-minute workouts, I feel like are the ones I can like
Yeah.
I feel like there's something about being the convenience of doing it at home in my own time, when my kids are home too. But beyond that, it really has been your classes. And I mean, I love all the classes that I have not taken a class that I didn't really appreciate and that I built heat from and I felt
Yeah.
really good about. But I always go back to your classes, and a lot of it I'm aware now as I've gotten older has to do with the fact that I'm seeing somebody who I can relate to in identity,
Yeah.
and I haven't really thought about my yoga background in that way, but I have since, and all my favorite teachers, they're white. And um I love them. Some of them are still my close confidants, but like there's something really motivating in taking class with somebody that I'm like, oh, I mean, my guess is you're mixed race. right?
Yes.
Yeah.
You
But
nailed
I
it.
still like I still like when I see you, I'm like, oh, if she can do it, I could do it too, because there's like a resonance, in our identity. And I swear that's part of why I'm like, okay, I'm going to set my alarm for like 5:45 and I'm going to get up and squeeze in one of these workouts with Dani. And like, I swear within a couple weeks, I felt like my pants were fitting more comfortably. And I'm so thankful.
Thank you.
I'm so thankful to social media is how I found out about it too, just because like I haven't been seeking studios in person just because of COVID and the
Hmm.
logistics of children. And so I honestly didn't know about it until I started seeing it on Instagram a couple months ago. But yeah, it's just, you're amazing. The workout's amazing. And,
Thank you.
but yeah, it's the big thing that got me was like, oh my God, I think Dani's mixed race. So I would love to hear about how you identify about your family of origin.
Yes. Well, you nailed it. As we, considered, I think in the AAPI community, I'm Hapa. So I am half Japanese and then a big mix of different Swedish, Irish, French from my father. So my mother's Japanese, my dad is Caucasian, and I'm biracial. And I think it's a very intriguing place to be um, in this time and place. And it's also something that's definitely more prevalent now, especially being in California. I do feel like I am around a lot of mixed race people and just diversity in general, which is one of the things that I love about places like New York and California. And having grown up in those areas. So I was born in California, actually, San Maria, California, but grew up mostly on the East Coast in New Jersey, New York, went to college in New York, and then moved back here about 9 years ago to pursue a little bit more commercial style dance. But half Japanese. And I would say what I was so excited to talk to you most about and listening to some of your previous episodes is you have so many people that love and celebrate and have always identified with their Asian side or their Asian origin, and that was something I came to learn later on in life. I would say honestly, I felt like a part of me had been missing or that I wasn't identifying as with my Japanese side. I grew up a little bit more Americanized, I would say. My mom was born in California as well, and I would say her mom, you know, and my great grandmother are more tied to our Japanese culture, and it's something that I'm definitely learned to embrace and love because I feel like I was a little self-hating growing up, and but I didn't realize it till later, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of at this new place with myself and identity. I'd say obviously largely due to all the reckoning of the pandemic and all of the conversations and just growing up. And I think when you're younger, you're just a little bit more naive or ignorant to things. So I feel like I'm unlearning a lot that I didn't realize was yeah
Yeah, I think
that was
like
input.
especially with Japanese families, because I think of all the East Asian races or ethnicities, I never know which is the exact correct term to
Yeah.
use, but like the Japanese have been in America for much longer than Chinese or Koreans. Like my parents immigrated, I was born
Mhm.
in the States, but they were not. And I feel like most of the Koreans and Chinese friends of mine, at least, have similar stories. And whereas with Japanese, I remember meeting like fifth generation Japanese people, and so I can understand how that would take you a bit further from that part of your identity, because your mother and everybody that came before her, they had like that layer, that generation of having assimilated into American culture already. Whereas for me, I was born to immigrants that um, did not feel American, were not technically American. But did you, and like, I think like the internalized kind of self-hate thing, which I think whether you're mixed race or not, like my friends and I, who are also full Asian, we're all only just finding language to understand that, and
Hmm.
I think within all the different like non-white races, Asians have a more blurry understanding of where we stand within American culture, because we've always been like white adjacent, right? We've
Yeah.
not been we've just the system has considered us different to Black people, like and that's been very intentional from like through like systemic oppression.
Hmm.
But I think because our Asian culture generally, we don't want to ruffle feathers. We don't want to, we don't also, I don't know how it is in your family. I'd be really curious to hear more, but in my family, like you don't talk about difficult, awkward, like uncomfortable, bad things. Like
Hmm.
it's sort of, there's this like, almost like this, let's just pretend that didn't happen and let's just keep our eye on like whatever the goal is, which in my family was get good grades and get a good job, like that kind of stereotypical pursuit of the American dream. And how was it like, what kind of, when you were growing up, because you did have an American, your mother's Japanese, but she's American,
Hmm.
she's Japanese American, like was she more communicative about like emotional stuff than maybe you would kind of assume people from immigrant families were?
So I think my mother and I's relationship is something that I've really just grown to love. We've got closer as I've gotten older. And she's actually opened up more as she's gotten older. It's been to watch my father handle emotions and to watch my mother handle emotions are two opposite sides of the coin. They're very much opposites attract. But when I think about my mother, I think of her as one of the strongest women that I know. And it was something that I didn't understand again until I was like later on in my womanhood and whatnot. But she was someone that, growing up, emotions weren't talked about. I was very much raised on a tough love mentality by my mother, and this is one of my favorite things to talk about. When I was dancing at one point when I was younger, I forgot my routine on stage. And I think I just cried on stage for 2 minutes standing there. And my mom bought the recording and made me rewatch it as a learning lesson of like, you stood on stage and you cried for 2 minutes, but you didn't run off. And I wasn't allowed to like leave the stage. It was, a lesson from my coach. But that was the way that very much I grew up with my Asian mother was if you failed at something, we learned from it, we did better. Um, and emotions were something that I think she also learned more about later on in her life and how to handle because her upbringing, I think, definitely stifled it. So I have a little bit of both sides where my father was very communicative and talked a lot about feelings, and my mother was very much put your head down, do the work, don't talk about it, shoulder everything. Um, and now having grown up, I can see my mother in a lot of different beautiful lights that I just didn't understand when I was younger because you just think, oh my gosh, she was the one we were nervous about and scared about when we were growing up. My brothers and I, we would be, if we got that, that bad grade, and I would avoid my mom and go to my father. If I had something tough that I was going through, um, I always knew my mom would be the disciplinary more so in the
Mm.
relationship or have these standards that weren't necessarily spoken about, but were understood from a very young age of how I was supposed to act, how I was supposed to be. And I credit her for my resilience and my work ethic um, but also just, yeah, had to unlearn a little bit that it's okay to say you need help. It's okay to show vulnerability. That is something I think she's learning later on in life that we're all processing together as family. It's like vulnerability is okay. Saying, you need help is like okay. Saying mentally you're struggling, that's okay. But it's definitely something that we've learned later on and that I've had a lot of different chapters with my mother throughout my life
I
in
mean,
a really beautiful way.
that's so amazing that
Yeah.
she's evolved to be open to that, I think that's really unique that
Yes.
usually as people get older, we all get more set in our ways, that idea of
Yeah.
like however your parents were usually gets further cemented as they get older. So that's a really beautiful thing that she's actually you've gotten closer, emotionally closer, more able to talk about things. um what do you think, was how did that happen?
Well, knowing my grandmother, she was definitely, I think, brought up in a way that again similar. Women kind of took the back seat, and you just provided without question to everyone around you and just gave without second thought to it. And I definitely think it's a generational generational
Yeah.
trauma, I guess, or generational learning passed on for sure. Because I see it in all of on my mom's side, all of, you know, my grandmother, my great grandmother, my aunts, the way that they just both move emotion through their bodies, how they carry it, and how they carry other people's responsibilities as well.
Well,
Definitely
also even
generational.
like your mom was supportive of you dancing from a young age. Is that also feels exceptional because it's not a
I know.
typical Asian parent supported, like field to go towards. It's not like doctor, accountant, or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
So there was already, and the fact that she married, like your dad is Caucasian,
Caucasian.
there's like the openness was already there. That's really different from a more insulated. There are a lot of
Mm-hmm.
Asian cultures that are much more insulated, right? So when did you start dancing?
Since I was two,
Oh,
and
wow.
they've always been very supportive. My parents, I feel very lucky about it. You know, my brother, but then we have my brothers who's a lawyer and a doctor, so I feel like
Okay.
they did
are
they did
are
check
they
those
older?
boxes. Yes.
Are they
So
older? Okay.
I always
That's
say
so
by the
funny.
time I was there, every family needs one artist, and I happen to be that one. So, but I think, you know, but with that, always very supportive of my performance career, always very supportive of who I wanted to be, and I feel grateful for that. Um, with that though, I did have those expectations that I was going to get straight A's. If I didn't get straight A's, I wasn't allowed to go to dance class, and it was
Mm,
very much that yeah, that standard of a Japanese mother that is, you know, I think prevalent in a lot of Asian communities and still to this date of excellence in your field. And if I wanted to be, you know, that's why I also think that dance video resonates so loudly to me, because she did want me to be like the expert in my field and to do the best that I could and to succeed. And but I was, while she supported dance, I was still held to those academic standards very much so, outside of my dancing career. But it was, I felt very supported growing up. I feel very
do you
lucky.
Yeah, do you feel like that was a good call though? Like that it doesn't sound like you have any resentment or anything that she expected the good grades of you of you like at the same time as being supportive of dance. Like, or did you feel like it was a little too much?
I definitely felt overwhelmed at some points, but I really feel like I'm the person I am because of my learnings younger, and because of the demand in a way that, you know, they were always realistic though. They did let me be human. They did let me have moments of failure and to learn from it. It wasn't to be perfect all the time, but the expectation was that more than not, I would work hard and hit
Yeah.
those excellent standards. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, the whole concept of a tiger mom, right? Like that whole,
yes.
yeah. So I definitely also had that. And when I was growing up, it felt oppressive. It felt
Mhm.
unfair. But now that I'm older, and especially that I am a mom, I can really appreciate that. And there is like, it is a gift in a way to the child to kind of be pushed, to
Mhm.
and to for us to understand and figure out like what we can actually how much we can actually achieve. I think like the softness also has to be there. So as a mom now, that's what I understand because that's what I lacked. And I do see myself having not my daughter is 2, so
Mhm.
I don't expect things of her.
Yeah.
But my son is 9, so I see myself expecting more of him. And because that's how I was raised, I feel like I naturally go into that. And but I'm also very aware of like the emotional piece, the friendship piece, the affectionate piece also has to be part of it. So I even though like I felt resentful of how I was raised a lot of the
Yeah.
time, I appreciate it because I know that that's where like my discipline comes from, my work ethic
Mhm.
comes from, and all that. So you had your older brothers.
Mhm.
Did you have what was like your elementary school kind of like makeup? Like, were there a lot of mixed kids, or like was it really diverse in New Jersey? I guess it depends where in New Jersey you grew up.
Mhm. So I felt very fortunate, and I have this like vivid memory of first, I guess, being exposed to like my first Asian community. I grew up in Paramus, New Jersey, where I like pretty much accredit my middle to high school. I went to high school there days. So my, yeah, a large part of my youth there. And there's a moment when I first moved to New Jersey, I was in 5th grade, and the crowd that I was initially hanging out with were definitely more white based, Caucasian based. And then I we did have a large Korean population in
Yeah.
New Jersey. Um, and then there was this moment where I started hanging out more with the Korean community. And I instantly felt like there was a part that I was missing in my life. I instantly felt welcomed by the community. It felt similar. Um, and a large part of my friendships throughout high school were um, Korean based and Asian based, which was incredible because there's just so many parts of culture there that I just didn't have exposure to at a younger age. And I think up until that point, those were, I didn't realize that there was the little sayings that I was really trying to identify with just my Caucasian side. And I didn't realize that I um, felt embarrassed at moments to be Asian growing up, or I felt uncomfortable about it because it wasn't always around me. So I really am grateful for that experience in New Jersey because it definitely made me more at home in myself and something that I felt proud of and started to build that pride of, being half Asian, and didn't realize that I was mostly identifying with my Caucasian side up until that point. But it was a nice diverse. I think it was like 30% or 20, like 5 to 30% in my high school experience was Asian identifying. So I felt very fortunate for that. And with that same experience of I had Caucasian friends and Asian friends, and I felt like I had a little bit of both communities in me.
And did people know immediately when they like, did you get the question of like, oh, where, like, because
All the
I mean,
time.
yeah, because
The
I feel like I can recognize Hapa people. My kids are
Yes,
Hapa, and just being Asian, there's like this like radar that you're like, oh, I think that person is part Asian. But I feel like outside of that, I can imagine people probably had difficulty placing you.
I get where are you from? And then they like, yeah, but where are you from?
Oh
And what
yes,
are
yeah.
you? No, but like, what are you? That question, you're like, okay, this is where to put me in a box. Yes, I got that all the time. And just, I mean, so many different ways throughout life outside of high school, right? I just like consistently I did, and I was very active in school. So I was on the debate team, and then I was a cheerleader, and then I was class president. So I felt like I did all these things that, again, like checking those boxes of I have to be great at all these things, and wanted to as well. But I definitely felt like I crossed over a lot in different ways. And I think that's one of the most interesting things about being biracial that I sit with is the isolating part of it, but also the privilege that comes with it is, you kind of look Asian, you kind of look Caucasian, but you're not quite one or the other. So both sides, you can gravitate towards both sides in certain situations, and also feel isolated in certain situations by that as well.
Did you feel it sounds like that you said you met a lot of Korean people when you
Mm-hmm.
got to your school in fifth grade and that most of your friends were Asian. Did you feel like it sounds like they had no problem accepting you, even though that you were not full Asian, right?
Yes.
Like it sounds like they just, which I feel like is, I mean, I've heard stories that go either way,
Sometimes. Yeah.
right?
Uh-huh.
And I really am so curious about how my kids will find it growing up because like I feel really sensitive to creating a day-to-day life for them where they are not feeling like the token Asian, like the token
Yes.
non-white person, because I did feel that a lot through my upbringing, and it didn't feel great, I really remember distinctly seeing like my class photos, when like you take classroom photos at the end of the year or whatever, and there was always like very notable a couple tokens that were not white.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always growing up in California in the sun all the time. I was like always quite dark, quite
Mm-hmm.
tan. And so I would just remember seeing like my brown face and my black hair just standing out amongst a sea of like white, mostly white kids. And like I hated the
Mm-hmm.
way I felt. Like I felt different and weird and ugly. And I am still carrying that as a mother now, but I have to remind myself like my kids are mixed race. They're
Yeah.
not fully, they do look more Asian than white, but they're not, and I'm so
Yeah.
curious to see like how how they will respond to their environments and how they will be treated. I mean, they're still so young that like I don't
Mm-hmm.
know, but actually, so we just started my daughter in ballet class this summer.
I love. Okay.
I mean, it's called like Twinkle Toes Twos or something, and they just, yeah, don't know. She's not learned any actual ballet yet. They are mostly just getting used to being in a class and, following
Yeah.
directions. But it's really sweet. They're on their little tutus, and she's very stereotypically girly. She like wears her tutu most days at home, just like that's like what she wants to wear. But I'm watching her, and she's like, there's two kids of color in the class, and it's very obvious. And it like, and I see that. I'm like, it's a drop off class, but the parents can look through the little window and watch
Yeah.
them. And I can just see like she stands out so much. And I'm like, it makes me just like not worry, but it's something I notice. And it's
Hmm.
something that like I wonder, when will she notice?
Hmm.
If, or will she? And even as like our world is getting more race conscious and more
Hmm.
interested in there being social justice and not leaving non-white groups out, like America is constructed the
Yeah.
way it is, right? I mean, even for you, amongst I feel like actually the P-Evolve trainers, it's a good mix,
Hmm.
right? It's a pretty good mix, but
Yeah.
I feel like you're the only Asian trainer. Are you? I don't know if that's accurate.
I think
I think so.
so. We
Yeah.
have some Asian trainers in the studio, but probably on demand. I think
Yeah.
yes. And one of the reasons I got into, I definitely growing up to realized when I was other than in ballet class, especially danced, and it is an expensive sport, and um, it's an expensive art and something I was always aware of that I was more of a minority in these rooms and situations throughout college. And one of the things that I got into fitness and wellness for too is to make more seats at the table. And it's actually something I take very seriously at my role in PVOLV is the ability to like hire trainers. And one of the things I pride myself for the LA team specifically is that it is a diverse group of women. And I want everyone to come to the studio. And also, we're open to all identifying. It's just, we have currently women identifying instructors, but I want everyone to walk into a space and feel like you do when you see me on demand, that there is someone that looks like me and that all bodies are welcome, all people are welcome. In fitness and especially boutique, it can be a very uh, predominantly white area, and wellness. And I'm glad we're opening up the conversations to different bodies and, like you said, to different just identities in general in fitness. But it's definitely something I'm super passionate about because it was something that I was always very aware of growing up. Is
Yeah.
yeah, I'm the minority here, and then also this weird thing, like you said, of I'm the minority here, but I'm also sometimes the ways that people you're like, okay, I'm the diversity card. You know what I mean? At
Yes.
certain points, you're like, you like me because I do look more Asian than my white side. And you have this, like I said, this interesting place of privilege and isolation as a biracial person. And I'm aware of it. Like you said, we're kind of this own little pocket in America with how Asians, I think, are viewed.
How
So
did
it's
you
interesting.
were you a
Yeah.
trainer prior to joining PVOLV? Were you like a personal trainer just on your own,
Hmm.
like running your own thing?
Yeah, so I've been in fitness now, I think, for about 10 years. I was personal training certified and I was training private clients. And then also just, I've kind of been in boutique fitness a lot in my fitness career. So I've just
And did you
seen it
always
all.
feel like you had the doors were open for you? Like, did you ever feel any sort of, I mean, because when I was teaching, I definitely didn't feel like I was like, at a disadvantage because I was Asian. I didn't feel that in the moments of like auditioning to teach at a studio or whatever. Um, and actually, with Nike, when I got involved with them, they specifically were looking for, um, like actually in their whatever you call it, their call out to like looking to fill this role of a yoga ambassador. They wanted an Asian person, which I thought was, I mean, I was like, this was like almost, it was over 15 years ago now, but um I didn't really think that much of it. I don't know. But in hindsight, looking at all my peers in
Hmm.
various places, I'm like, oh my God, I'm often like the token Asian
Yeah.
person. But I didn't feel like doors were not open to me. Like I didn't feel
Hmm.
like people were like, I don't know. It's like we'd rather have a white person. Like I didn't ever feel that. And
Yeah.
yet I'm confused as to, well, why was I always the token? Why weren't there
Hmm.
more um Asian people? And I know the fitness, yoga, wellness landscape has changed a lot more recently. But did you notice that, like that you, when you were, did you ever train out of gyms, or were you more just one-on-one, like your own business?
Some gyms and some one-on-one. And I feel the same to you, that I feel lucky that I didn't feel like something wasn't available to me because I was Asian, but I did always take note of that when the room was predominantly white and Caucasian. And I still to this day, when I look at when I'm, in anything that I do, I'm looking at the room and I want it to be better than it still is. We still have so much work to do across all landscapes in the United States, but with my direct area that I'm in, this fitness realm, we still need way more representations, way more accessibility, and resources. It was definitely something that I just took note of a lot. Especially, yes, in this industry, I would just walk in and be like, okay, I'm the only person that's not white identifying in this room of 30 people. But I never felt like an opportunity wasn't presented to me for that reason. And at some points, yeah, like being half Asian was a great thing with a company, with certain companies.
When you say
So,
30 people, you mean like like fellow students that are coming into a class, or like
or
at a
like,
training type of thing, maybe?
yeah, or like even like, like the genetic makeup of a company, even looking
Ah,
at those things for companies that
yeah.
I've worked for in the past, just when you just come in, you're like, okay, what's the breakdown here? And you're realizing, I want to be in a room where there's all people leading the charge, and I want to
Yeah.
work towards more spaces where that's happening. And I do think, again, like we're expanding that conversation, and those things are happening across all professions in a lot of, real ways, which is great. But yeah, just be times I'd be in a company and I'd be like, oh, interesting,
Yeah.
or
I mean, I think
just,
it is something where like the effort has to be made. Like they have, like the different backgrounds, the different identities have to be called in, like
mhm,
intentionally. Because if we just let things go with how they naturally flow, it's always going to lean more
yeah,
white, and not even just white, but like, so what's the like the mainstream identifying cis het at all,
yeah,
people just like there's a certain main kind of body type, race, whatever that is at the forefront.
hmm,
And it's a difficult thing because it's not necessarily done maliciously, or like that's, I think that's why I brought up the thing of, I never felt like doors were closed to me. And yet, once I got through, I was aware that I didn't.
yeah,
So that means a door has to be closed to most of the people that look like us, because otherwise, where are they?
hmm,
And I feel similarly at in the schools, just noticing there is more of an effort to make student bodies more racially not just racially, but diverse in all the different
hmm,
ways. But when the teachers, the faculty are not representative in the same way, that continues the divide and the issue. Like this is feeling of kids of color not seeing teachers that look like them, similar to how I felt, just like not feeling the most motivated, trying all these other workout classes, and like, and then suddenly coming across your classes at PVolve and being like super motivated. And part of it is
hmm,
for sure, like I think the method is amazing and the equipment like makes a really big difference. But deeper than that is, and it's also like I did notice from the beginning, like there's an array of teachers and even an
yes,
array of bodies, and like
hmm,
I appreciate that, because there are some other workouts I've tried where I get this like feeling of almost like I'm demoralized and I don't even really
hmm,
know why, but like it's there, it's like, so if I follow a different type of this different workout I'm thinking of, and I do some of their workouts on the app, and I follow their Instagram, and it's
hmm,
always just people that don't look like me at all. It just feels
hmm.
like I just feel like I'm on the outside, like trying to join this thing where I'm not really invited, like it sort of. So I wonder what your, of the live classes,
Yeah.
do you see like a good diverse mix of people coming in, whether it's race or, like body type. Because I know like when I taught yoga, a lot of times people felt really afraid to come in because they're like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm not, I need to lose weight first before I come to class, because they had this idea that was often correct, that it was just going to be all super fit, super skinny people in class, and they don't want to put themselves in that situation. Like, what do your classes look like?
I feel very fortunate in the sense, especially at the LA studio, it's a very diverse crowd coming in. And I think part of that is great because we do have instructors that look and all different, which is, so I feel like the studio makeup is very diverse. However, we can always do better. And I'm definitely aware of that. And, on our live virtual studio and on demand. And the thing I love most about PVOLV and the method in general is they're always open to feedback and to doing better. And they're also, the method by nature really, we appeal to people if you've had endometriosis, if you struggled with fertility issues, if you're going through menopause, really catering to meeting her where she's at in her life and all different ways that manifests itself. So I do respect that the company so much, I think, really appeals to people that maybe don't feel like they have a voice or a place in fitness, or haven't, found their workout. They're now being able to move their body in a safe and sustainable way that helps them feel strong. So I love the method for that reason. But I definitely say it's diverse, and we can always do better.
Yeah.
I'd say since I've been with the company for the past 3.5 years, it's only continued to grow in really beautiful ways, from the inside out. And I really, really respect that about the company. And I also take that as a leader in the company as part of my responsibility to make sure I
Yeah.
am leading that charge and helping, those
Well,
conversations.
I think that's where it starts. And that was like my point with like the teachers at schools. It's like when the people who are in the positions of leadership, those are the ones that can really direct like what's going to happen, like how it's going to grow, right? Like how
Mm-hmm.
that they can really affect change. I saw too that I don't know if you still do, but you're teaching in Little Tokyo.
Uh, I was volunteering at the Little Tokyo Service Center, which is very near and dear to my heart because, like I said, I didn't get pride or feel the urgency to do so much for my Japanese side until later on in life. And now it's something that I feel like I am seeking out community and connections, and especially in California, these different pockets. But I did come across Little Tokyo Service Center, and I had the privilege of volunteering and teaching their seniors fitness class. And it was the highlight of my week. And it literally is what I would love to do with fitness long term, is to provide it to people that don't have access, don't have means to it. And it was 1 hour a week, and it was the best ever. And I just was able to volunteer and get, at one, just had the class just grew every week, and it sparked so
Oh,
much joy in my heart. But it's a really incredible organization that really helps underserved communities, specifically the AAPI community in downtown LA. It helps provide housing, affordable housing, and different recreational causes like fitness and wellness, and just incredible organization. So
how did they do, the people that came to classes, and were they like elderly, like in their
yes,
70s and 80s
70s,
and
80s. I like seniors, and incredible. They, just did so well, and they were hardworking, and they would show up in anything, sometimes jeans, short, whatever they had, and they were just the
oh my
best
God.
and the most hardworking, and embraced me and would laugh at me because I couldn't speak Japanese, and they would teach me. It was just like a beautiful exchange, and I felt so connected to them, and so again accepted by them, which is, like we said, sometimes it can go both ways, but I really felt like they embraced me, and it was just, I love them so much, and I hope to get back to them soon. Just at the moment, I'm taking a step away just because of work demands at the moment.
Yeah, so much going on. Yeah, I bet
Yeah,
they loved the impact that you would have had, that you had would be different if it wasn't a part Asian person, like there's
yeah.
they probably, right, they felt that camaraderie, and they're like, all right, we're gonna go to this like workout class. It's funny you mentioned the jeans, because on our school commute, I haven't seen him in a while, but there was this Asian man. He was probably, I mean, I don't know, you can't really tell age with Asians.
Yeah,
They're often
yeah,
they look much younger than they
yeah.
actually are. But I mean, my guess would be early 60s maybe, but
Mhm.
he would be running. I'd see him running like every morning in a polo shirt and jeans. And like even like he had his belt on.
Yeah.
But he was like proper running, not like a shuffle, but like the
Hmm.
jog, like a respectable jog. And it
Yeah.
always made me so happy to see, because firstly, it's just great to see, that he is into exercising and running, but that he was just, it just felt like such an Asian thing that he was doing it in like normal street clothes.
Yeah. Whatever
Oh,
to get the job done.
and I'm like, well, I mean, yeah, I guess you don't have to wear lycra. Like he's in
Yeah.
cotton, loose fitting, but it was just like a funny sight that you wouldn't really see, I don't know. Like it just felt very Asian to
Yeah.
see them running in that. But okay, I want to ask more about do you like you mentioned the term mental health earlier in
Hmm.
regards to like your relationship with your mom getting
Hmm.
closer, and I'm just curious, like what do you do to just take care of your mental health, or if there's anything that you feel comfortable talking about?
Yeah. Well, I tried therapy for the first time this year. I did talk online therapy. And I think the beauty of where we're at with technology, I have so many feelings about technology, but one of the benefits is, yeah, making things like mental health more accessible on your phone. So I tried that this first time this year. And I think most of my way of handling things throughout life has been disassociation, or like that Japanese said, just, don't talk about it, handle it, shovel it down, and just go, go, go. So I think that for me, processing feelings, admitting I have feelings, and talking about feelings has been a pretty big revelation in lots of different components of my life. So for me, that has been really interesting. Just to sit and talk about feelings and your feelings and owning that you have feelings has just been eye opening to me. And I think for me, mental health is not measuring my worth in productivity. I think I've been such a, you know, from balancing dancing 7 days a week since I was young with school, and I would work as well to help contribute to my dance bills. I tell people when I was in college, I would make my rent Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and still be a full time student, but I would work like 40 hours in 3 days. And I feel like I've always been at this really high frequency level of operating. So for me, mental health is not measuring my worth and productivity or what I have to bring to the table just professionally. It's taking that time to actually rest and to turn off. That's where I try to focus my mental health for me.
And did you
Shutting
seek therapy just because like was something going on, or you were just like, oh, I think this would be a good thing to add to kind of taking care of myself?
Yeah, I think a couple of things is, I've gone through some things like most people have in their lives that have felt pretty monumental in the way that they've shaped me that I've never addressed before. I experienced loss at a really young age, um, and didn't do much when I was younger to navigate that. And then truly over the pandemic and just becoming a more aware adult, I just have a lot of anger towards where the world is right now and with racism and white supremacy. And I really sought out talk therapy for that reason too, is how
That
to handle that.
I'm getting chills because I started therapy after my having my first kid and going through postpartum depression, and it was not a proactive thing. It was
Mhm.
definitely like, oh my God, I'm really struggling, I need support. And in hindsight, I'm like, oh, where the language is now with regards to mental health, it is um much more just normal. Like it's not this like, oh, you're in therapy, that's weird, right? It's kind of,
Yeah.
it's like normalized, which I think is so great. But it, wherever I was in my life, and um almost a decade ago, like I don't feel like it was like that. But thank God that I got there, and I talk to everybody about therapy now. I think it's so
Hmm.
wonderful. But I took a break when my second was born, because I knew that like logistically it was going to be difficult to maintain like weekly meetings and whatever, and because like I it'd been a long time since I'd had acute symptoms, like
Mhm.
I continued therapy because I just loved it. And just like kind of what you're
Mhm.
talking about, like just being able to talk about feelings and just all of that. But it was more like a maintenance. It wasn't like I'm in like dire need of support.
Mhm.
So I felt like, okay, it's a good time to pause. And logistically it was gonna be hard, but I also didn't feel like I needed it anymore,
Yeah.
right? In the same way. But the reason I went back to it was because of all the Asian hate crimes and
Mhm.
the anger that you mentioned. I just was like, I didn't know what to do with it. I felt scared also walking through New York City, especially like with my kids. I felt really vulnerable. And these were, like there were daytime attacks just happening in Manhattan. Like
Mhm.
so many of my, and like thankfully none of my friends were violently assaulted, but that's
Yeah.
insane that I even need to make that make that point. But
Yeah.
like people were shoved, people had masks ripped off their faces or just yelled at, like it was just constant, so I was really scared. And the reason I called my therapist and requested sessions back was really just to like figure out how to process all of this anger and fear and like what to do with it. And I think for Asians, the last few years, whether we whether we've been super aware of any sort of like racism or microaggressions or whatever, we've held that, like it's
Mhm.
been part of our like cellular reality, even if you're not going through life feeling like you're constantly discriminated against, right? Just like the little subtle realizations of like, oh, I'm the only Asian person in the room,
Mhm.
or just, and the last few years just brought all of that to the surface. And I mean, this is why I started this podcast, was like, how can I make this conversation bigger than just talking to my friends about it, or to my husband about it.
Yeah.
And what can I contribute that will help humanize our experiences, and I think what's really difficult with racism against Asians prior to like the rise in hate crimes is that it's not been as visible,
Mhm.
like to non-Asians. And layered on top of that is our tendency to not, like our parents' tendency or whatever, to like not talk
Mhm.
about it.
Yeah.
But just seeing that, like, wow, but that didn't serve us at all because that has, like what that caused was like vulnerable Asian people being attacked in
Mhm.
broad daylight. And yeah, that anger, like what I
Yeah.
didn't know what to do with it. And I still don't really know what to do with it, to be honest.
Leah, I don't either. I'm trying to channel it in ways that are just beneficial, like, volunteering for Little Tokyo Service Center and, even just outside our AAPI experience, like just trying to fight the good fight, for everyone and use my voice and the privileges that I do have in the ways that I can. But it's hard. And I just have so much anger because it feels like an uphill battle, right? So it can be definitely discouraging. And I don't know, I don't think my rage has gone away, but I think I'm learning to channel it in ways that aren't
it
just doom scrolling and things, putting my putting it to work,
Well, I think
trying
also
to.
like being in movement, like literally moving that energy through your body is huge, right? Which, so I've done no other sport or dance or anything in my life until yoga. I mean, I went to the gym and things like that, but I was always way too scared to do any sort of like team sport or anything performance wise. Um, but I got into yoga, and like, as many yoga people do, became really obsessed. And I was like,
Mhm.
yoga's the only worthy exercise because it's about like connecting with yourself and spirituality. And I was like really on my yoga high horse. I
Mhm.
kind of be like, oh no other forms of workout are the same, like yoga's better. Anyway, I don't think that way now. But I wanted to share, this was just like a few days ago. I think I did one of I think it was an ebb and flow,
Uh-huh.
where, so I still don't, okay, and let me know if I'm understanding correctly. It's like you have the like there's like high cardio bursts, like high
Yes.
intensity bursts. That's like the ebb
Yeah.
and flow, right? And I don't
Mhm.
think I understood that because I typically would be scared. I'm like kind of scared of cardio. I
Most
always
people are.
I've always been,
You're not alone.
like yeah. So but like ebb and flow in my brain just didn't register as cardio. So I picked that workout, was one of yours, and found myself like dripping in sweat and just like I was just doing it. I completed it. I always see the workouts through, even if they're really hard. And at the end of it, I burst into tears. I just was
Yeah.
like, and that has not happened to me outside of yoga. And it has not
Mhm.
happened really outside of like having done yoga a long time ago, pre-motherhood, where I was that obsessed yogi that, I used to
Mhm.
practice like 3 hours a day and I was teaching like 3 to 5 classes a day most days. And so this is getting to the point of like moving energy through the body. And I think a big issue with life changing when you become a parent is you don't have that time, your body
Mhm.
feels different, you don't have the energy. Like that's where I was. And like I was really stuck. Like I would just I think my energy really was
Mhm.
stuck. And even though I would still do my yoga practice or go to a Pilates class sometimes, like I think it was barely just kind of like keeping my head above water. And doing that ebb and flow class recently, I think it like unlocked something that I used to be able to access, like a
Mhm.
longer time ago in a younger body and a more free life. And I was crying and I was like, oh my God, like this is what people feel when they dance, when they play their sports, when they do rock climbing. Or my husband's an avid runner. Like when he goes, I don't think he cries after runs, but that like, it was like the movement of energy. And
Yeah. I
yeah,
thank you for sharing that. We love, hearing things like that as instructors and teachers. And I think it's one of the best things too about fitness that I want to focus on in this realm is all the benefits you get for us outside of anything like aesthetic. It is to move emotions through the body. It is mental health. It is carving out sacred time for you to give back to yourself, mentally, physically, emotionally. And I love that you experienced that. Thank you. I love
I
truly
mean,
those moments are why I do what I do. So it's nice to hear it.
oh, well,
Yeah.
thank you for doing what you do. And I'm just conscious of our time. Is there, I mean, I know you've got so much going on. It's like PVOLV is your main focus, right? And you're, as a director of training, does that mean are you bringing in new instructors? Are you guys doing teacher trainings? Like, is there anything you want to share, like coming down the line?
I, I mean, we are rapidly franchising, which is very exciting. So you'll be seeing us in a lot of new cities, Nashville, Calgary, Canada, Victoria, Canada, Carlsbad, San Diego, La Jolla, San Diego,
Wow.
just all over Arlington, Virginia, Arizona eventually. So we're rapidly expanding, and I do have the privilege to help train all of our instructors across studios and franchise locations. So I am heading to San Diego Monday, Tuesday, Canada the next week. So we'll just be rapidly expanding. And if you can't come to one of our studios, we do have on demand, like you've experienced, and live virtual studio. And if anyone's listening in LA, please come say hi to me. come
Yeah.
come move with me in person. But that's it. We're just expanding, and they're keeping me busy, which I very much appreciate, and I love what I get to do. So
Oh, well, thank you so, so much for taking time to have this chat. I mean, it's been so good. I have so many more questions, but maybe I can meet you in person someday and
yeah,
have a real life conversation with you. Um, but in
yes,
the
thank you.
meantime, yeah, I'll let you know when all this is edited and ready to go, and make sure
Perfect.
you feel good with everything. And just thank you so much.
Leah, it was so great talking to you, and I really appreciate it. And I feel like I could chat your ear off like many more hours. So thank you so much. It's like so nice to connect with you, and I really appreciate everything that you're doing and putting forth with your podcast too. It's like
Oh,
so
well,
fabulous. So thank
I'm
you.
I'm glad we're in the same community now. Like it's
Yes,
we'll be the ones to make all the change, right? And just keep diversifying and keep inviting everyone in. And yeah. All right. Well, I
thank
hope to talk to
you.
you soon.
Yes, thanks,
All
Leah.
right.
Have a good rest of your
Okay.
day.
You too. Bye.
Bye.